Plane.
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 Our flight has gone down. This is an emergency.
Okay, so basic plot. It's New Year's Eve. There is a flight from Singapore to Tokyo, and there's a storm. Lightning hits the plane. Plane must have an emergency landing, and they land in some random island
In the Philippines.
And when they're there, they discover that they're on an island that's inhabited by a bunch of separatists and very dangerous people, so they must survive now. Very straightforward.
Very straightforward. It's all right.
Weird seeing a VOD on the big screen.
Yeah.
It's decent.
Yeah. I was entertained.
Yeah, couple tense sequences, like the beginning with the plane crashing.
Very, very tense
Pretty well
sequence.
done.
I was maybe an inch forward in my seat
Yeah.
on that one. It was a no-frills, generic action movie that kept up the pace. It never really slowed down and got boring. Its biggest problems were characters and fun.
Yeah.
And the buddy angle, maybe a little bit, but
It took itself a little too seriously.
took itself too seriously. It needed a little levity, a little more banter going on, maybe.
Now, that's not to say that, I mean, obviously if this unfolded in real life, it'd probably actually play out very similarly to how the film
Yes,
did.
yes. You know, it did feel like, okay, everyone's making decisions I guess they probably would make.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
All of the secondary characters, the crew, competent. The mercs,
For the most part, yeah.
competent. Everybody, you know, with the exception of like the passengers, because no one's really expecting much out of them anyway. They're kind of just like the hostages.
Yeah.
And that's what that's their role. None of them really do anything.
You know what all the passengers kind of reminded me of? Speed.
Yeah,
all the guys on
exactly,
the bus. They're
exactly.
just like
They're there.
some randos. There's some defined personalities in some of them, but for the most
Exactly.
part, they're just like the people that are in peril and the people that need to be saved.
Like Alan Ruck in Speed.
Yes.
Fuck me.
Let's give him some lines.
Oh darn.
Just like they gave the American, Sinclair was his name. Let's give him some douchebag lines. Whoa, what's going on? Why are there bumps in this plane? Whoa, there's an ugly plane. Like, just stupid shit. It's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of defined.
You had like the two
What
hot
the-
girls, and you had like
Yes, who were on their phones the whole time, like, we're
Yeah.
crashing. Like, that nonsense. They didn't really do that, but they filled that quota.
yeah.
The Gen Z quota.
There's that one character randomly in the movie when they're escaping and they're on
Getting
that
on the
bus,
bus, yeah.
and then Gerard Butler says, "Can you drive this thing?" And the guy just says, "Yeah, I can drive anything."
Like, when he says it, like, they spend, like, time on it, like, and he says it with real confidence, like, I can drive anything. And Gerard Butler's like, respect. Like, okay, it's a bus. Like, it was just a weird moment because it was the only time they ever gave...
That guy didn't
like,
really say anything at that moment.
He said nothing the whole movie. It was the only time they ever gave, like, one of the passengers something to do that they needed help with. Everyone else was just, like, did nothing. Nothing of use, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they were all scared out of their minds.
Of course,
that's
of course.
That's
no,
not.
and that's not putting it down. It's
No,
just saying,
yeah.
like, the one thing you choose to, like, give someone to do, and it's like, he's driving a bus. And then they point out the fact, like, wait, you know how to drive this bus? He's like, I can drive literally anything. Like, it was so weird.
You might as well. He should have just piloted the plane.
He should have just flew away. You got the co-pilot. It all worked. It was all there. It was just missing that little extra charm.
It took itself a little too serious, which also just made it slightly generic.
It felt like there were times where it was going to break through that.
Yeah,
And then it
doesn't really do it.
didn't. Like the villain on the island they land on, he was just like, here's your villain. And okay, I mean, there's been lots of great action movies out there with one-note villains because you get enough of the personality from whoever your main character is in the buddy aspect of it. But if you can then add on top of that
A compelling villain.
a compelling villain, you've got a recipe for success.
Yes.
But the villain was kind of just like, this is my island. I'm in charge of this island. I kill everybody. And then, of course, there is Luke Cage, our resident prisoner. He may have committed a murder.
Don't really go into.
They don't
it.
really dive too deep into his past. You find a little bit about, like, he got into some trouble when he was younger, joined the Foreign Legion, so that's how he has, like, military skills. Gerard Butler has, like, some, I guess, military skills because he was in the RAF, but, like,
Yeah.
I don't really know how much training as an RAF
They
pilot
mentioned
you get,
that,
like,
and then they showed that phone footage of him taking out a passenger on the plane,
Yeah, which
to,
is great.
to set up that he knows how to like handle himself in a fight.
Yeah, which brings us to off the island characters. Tony Goldwyn.
Tony fucking Goldwyn, dude.
Love that guy. He shows up, he's got his long wool coat on, and he's like, now the movie can start. And then he takes his coat off and he's like,
Tony Goldwyn in total douchebag mode.
tell me what's going on so I can fix it.
Yeah.
And he does.
He's the, Tony Goldwyn is the PR fixer for the airliner.
Yeah. Of course, he's got a bunch of mercs in his back pocket, which, of course he does. And he calls them in. And hey, you know what? It was the right call. Imagine that. The mercs show up and they're all competent. Everyone's competent.
Yeah, and there's not like a bad seed out of the group.
No.
They just all work together.
Oh, imagine that. They're all just professional.
Yes.
And they're all badass at their jobs.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Competency is what lets you tell your story in a compelling way. And you're not like, oh, why did he do that? Why did they do that? Like, we weren't doing that while we were watching this movie.
Thrillers, horror movies. Half the reason why those kinds of movies are able to carry on the way that they do is just because of bad decisions. But when you do something where the characters aren't making bad decisions, the audience is on your side a lot more. Because then it's like, oh shit, like they're doing everything in their power to make this work.
Right.
Stuff still goes wrong.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing what competent people do when things go wrong.
Right.
And that makes it more interesting.
Yeah. Like when he goes to that like little abandoned building and he finds the phone and it's dead and it's like, oh, and he manages to like hotwire that shit, whoever he like connects it.
Yeah.
And he gets a dial tone. It's like, all right, yeah, he's showing his skill set here.
Yeah.
And it's working. And then of course, like, he gets interrupted in a way that makes sense. Like some guy runs in and like attacks him. Yeah. All of that stuff worked. In addition, as far as outside characters go, you get Gerard Butler's daughter, who we only see a little bit, like beginning, a little bit in the middle where she's all upset, and then in the end. And she's just like your typical Gen Z girl going right to the phone to like record messages to her dad and shit. And it's like, okay, I don't really care about her. I care more about like him.
Yeah.
And like what he's feeling about wanting to see his daughter again. She has like no development. She's kind of just like, every time they show her, she's like lounging in a hammock in like Malibu or something. Like,
because to scenic California,
yeah,
where nothing is going wrong.
Right? She's in California going to college, I think he says. And then like every time we cut to her, she's just like, just chilling. It's like, life's good in SoCal.
She's just there for the motivation.
Right, for him to have a reason to get home.
Exactly.
That's it.
I'm gonna need your help.
You're gonna need this.
Why'd they lock you up?
No one cares what really happened.
I'm still confused, though, by the name of this movie.
Plane.
Now, I did read that the studio didn't want to call the movie Plane, but at the behest of Gerard Butler, he was like, no, we're going to call the movie Plane. Because whatever he says goes, apparently. It's called Plane. They could have come up with something a little more compelling for this type of generic action movie.
It is definitely a working title. They were just like, oh, we'll just call it this for now. The script has to have a name.
Yeah.
We'll call it something
now,
down the line.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could say like the plane is kind of featured as a main character because it brings them into this situation and ultimately it brings them out of the situation. But I don't know, for me, they should have called it something like Hostile Layover. Or like, you know, anything that would have...
You could have called it Pilot.
Pilot. Yeah, that makes a little more sense because he's actually the main character who does all the flying and gets them in and out of that situation.
So do you think this is going to be like the first of a new Gerard Butler trilogy?
It could be, because when we end and he takes off, lands on another island, gets everyone to safety, he still has to get back to LA where his daughter is. He's probably not going to want to get on another plane. So he's probably going to get on a boat, and then we'll have a sequel.
Called Boat.
Called Boat.
And then when he gets to land and gets off the boat, then naturally he's going to have to hop in a car.
Yeah.
To get to his next destination.
Yeah.
So then the third one could be called Car.
Yeah. And then we will have completed the Transportation trilogy of Gerard Butler. And I'd watch all of them, because this one was entertaining. Especially once the mercs got involved. And you're like, oh, how are these mercs gonna fuck this up? They don't.
I definitely thought they were gonna be there to fuck things up.
No, they show up. Gerard Butler's about to get his ass beat to death, and then boom, right through that guy's head.
And they just start taking them all out. They're all working in tandem. They're covering each other.
Unit.
Yeah, they're like an actual real military elite unit.
Yeah.
And they're doing their job and they're doing it well.
Yeah. And that one dude breaks out like the 50 cal and just starts ripping dudes in half with that. And it's like, whoa. Yeah, that was fun. I was getting flashbacks of
Rambo 4?
Rambo 4.
Same here.
When he just gets up on the back of that truck and just starts cutting people in half for like 20 minutes.
The same satisfaction level.
there was a lot of satisfaction there.
Plus, I was also thinking like a little bit of Rambo 4 just in terms of the setting and the geopolitical nature of the setting.
Right.
Kind of like that.
That was what, like Burma or something?
Yeah, but
this
just
was
like
Philippines.
a character being dropped in this like shitty situation of something that's going on like over there.
Right.
You know, it didn't get into the politics or anything.
Nope, it's just these are
Right.
some separatists.
Yes.
They're doing their own thing. They're bad dudes. The military from Manila, they won't go there. It's like, okay, we don't know what's going on here geopolitically. It's just happening because like it doesn't really matter, and they wouldn't care. They just want to get out of there. So yeah, I appreciate that they didn't waste time dealing with any of that crap. It's like, nope, you just got dropped into a shithole, and now you got to get out of said shithole.
That's it.
That's it. Pretty straightforward. So yeah, no frills, just almost fun.
That's what it was missing. So in the very beginning, Luke Cage is being transported and you don't know what to make of him yet. Is he going to be a good guy? Is he going to be a bad guy? Well, it turns out that once the shit hits the fan, he actually starts
helping.
Which is fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
But like once it's established that he's with Gerard Butler,
Yeah.
they had the opportunity to just sort of have some levity in there, some gallows humor, if you will. Like it just seemed like to me, it would have been a lot more memorable and a lot more fun if there was just some like banter between the two of them.
Right. Some
or
McClane Zeus banter.
Yeah, I'm
like,
not saying that it needs to be like, you know, that necessarily.
right.
Or
but just a little bit would
or
have been
Riggs
nice.
and Murtaugh. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be that, but just a little bit, just to provide some levity. So it's just like, all right, we can just enjoy this a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
more.
It would have
Because
been a little more fun.
Yeah, and
But I mean, they treated it so seriously. Like Gerard Butler didn't smile once in that movie until like the end.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
yeah, because at the end, it's still like a movie setup. It's still a slightly ridiculous premise.
Yeah, it's a
So
thriller. It's like
you can have fun with it.
Yeah.
It just didn't get to that level.
yeah,
And I think that if it did, it would have been a lot more memorable.
right. Yeah, I feel like this one's gonna just kind of disappear quickly.
Yeah.
Although I mean, we did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was entertaining.
We're getting off this island.
Plane.
So, rating wise, had it brought a little more of that levity that we were discussing, I would have given it a higher score. I ended up settling around a 6.5. I thought about a 7. 7 would have been like, yeah, that was like very good. But this was just shy of that.
Yeah.
Like it's still good, but it was missing that, and that was enough to like make it not memorable enough.
That is my exact review. 6.5. And I am with you. If there was that levity there, if there was that creativity there, if there was fun to make it a little bit more unique, to make it more to stand out
Yeah.
more, then I would have probably given it like an 8.
Yeah.
8.5
yeah,
maybe.
because then now it's a range of how good that fun
Yes.
is. And then that range would have taken it from anywhere from a 7 to
Yeah.
an 8. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Getting into the woke side of things,
The rainbow rating.
the rainbow rating. I
This
think
is probably going to be
our first
and maybe
foreseeable future, maybe our last
Yes.
for a little while.
Yeah.
A 0 rainbow.
0 rainbows.
0.
This film is agenda free.
Nothing. There was nothing in this movie but entertainment.
Maybe you guys can find something, and if so, please, of course,
Yeah,
comment
sure.
below.
Maybe we missed a couple little things here and there. We only saw it once.
And we were trying to nitpick too.
Yeah, there really wasn't much. There was that one little bit at the end when everything's settling down and he was like, oh, I'm just going to stay on the plane by myself for a minute, just take a minute. And he started fucking crying like a pussy, and then almost half a rainbow for that, but not really. That's no, 0.
Cried, that's fucking half a rainbow.
Right, half a rainbow.
Pussy.
Yeah, no, there was nothing. It was really just a straightforward, entertaining movie that could have been very good had they just injected a little more fun into it.
I will say that you can tell that the objective to making it was just making an enjoyable movie that people can watch and not think about the world for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
So I commend it for that.
Sure.
I also do think that it did a good job with taking something that was probably low budget, and they really milked the resources that they had and made something decent for the budget that they had.
Yeah, I mean there were times, especially during the sequence where the plane gets hit by lightning, where some of the green screen looking out at the cockpit window,
the budget showed a little bit.
It was like, this doesn't look as good as it could.
Yeah.
But you kind of just like let it go because you know like that this was not like a $80 million movie.
Sure. But the way that they shot it though was still
Yeah,
pretty tense.
it was tense. That whole sequence was very good. Of course, you kind of get the reverse of that at the end when they take off. But that whole sequence felt a little rushed.
Yeah.
Like they kind of take off and like people were kind of moving in different areas. Like, wait a minute, how'd that guy get all the way down to the end of the runway to shoot this guy? And then he takes off, and then it's like, we got another runway that you can
50
land on
miles
50
away.
miles away.
And then, like,
then
literally
he turns, and then literally it's
there.
like it's there, and it's
Yeah.
like there's no way he's going like 150 knots. There's no way he covered
There
50
probably
miles.
was some time compression there, but it just wasn't illustrated very well.
It wasn't illustrated very
Yeah.
well, and that was like they're nitpicks.
Yeah.
And at that point, we're done.
Yeah.
It's over. Check it out if you want some agenda-free entertainment.